So, welcome everybody. Welcome to our online audience as well. My name's Jono. With me today is our wonderful panel who I'll be introducing shortly. So, why are we all here? 6 months ago we ran an event, and in the intervening period there's been a lot of talk around generative AI, what's been happening, and the demand's getting to a level where we're fielding conversations every day on it. Today was all about how can we have a discussion and capture three key messages. First one being how do we getting started safely, how to establish governance and policy guardrails. As we know, this is fantastic. It's publicly available, but also from an organisational perspective, how do we work with this to actually achieve some results and get some fantastic happy consequences of this as well. Secondly is identifying use cases. That's the most common question that we do here is, what's this use case of generative AI? So our esteemed panel will have plenty of examples where they've gone about and what they've done. And thirdly is how to get started with generative AI across my own data. And I think that's the key step change for a lot of us as well, is actually saying we can have it publicly, but how do we leverage it within my own organisation? What do we have? And then so some strategies on that. And again, I've alluded to our panel, but I'd love to introduce you to our experts. Starting on my far right is Simon Casey from Barfoot & Thompson, CEO of Barfoot.
G'day.
Next to him is Manish Deva from Waitemata District Health. So welcome, thank you very much. And then we have Mr. McPherson, a veteran of these events with us, so we love having Andrew along. Andrew is the CEO of Sky City.
Yeah,
and
no run.
And then we have Christopher Mende. How are you, mate?
Okay.
So Christopher's from Google, head of technology for Google New Zealand. So again, thank you for your time. And finally, last but not least, we have Ursula. So thanks very much, Ursula, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Just as a footnote as well, why we've got these panelists on board as well, this is their views, not necessarily their organisational views. We're starting to see some early adopters and innovators across the space, and I think it's really important that we, when you come in, we're talking about that as well. And the idea is this is quite conversational, so you'll hear from them more than you'll hear from me, I promise. So, without any further ado, I think we will get started. And so this first question's, how are we seeing generative AI show up in your business? So, Andrew, kick us off.
Thanks, Joe. How are we seeing it turn up? Look, I'm going to take two perspectives on this. And I was at Stuff recently, so probably know Stuff.co.nz. So I was the CTO there for the last 2.5 years, and then last 3 weeks I've been at Sky City in the CIO role. So at Stuff we were very proactive, and we were really embracing the technology and really trying to adopt it and look for those use cases as quickly as possible. And I think the reason at Stuff that was the case is we had a lot of what we call unstructured data, so data that is in text, so content. We generate, business generates a lot of content, had a lot of content that's stored away, and it was about how can we reprocess that content in a way that's efficient, like summarizing it or changing it from a text to audio and all that. So that's Stuff. Now I'm at Sky City. It's actually quite the opposite. At Sky City, we've had to take the position of don't use AI, anybody, until we figure it out. And actually the other approach, rather than trying to quickly embrace it and run, we're taking a much more cautious approach. And again, I think it's the nature of the organisation is because there's a high requirement for compliance, and the business naturally has to be a bit risk averse, and obviously a publicly listed business. So it's been really good to be able to contrast and compare two different businesses and their approach to AI are completely different, different ends of the spectrum. And both for valid reasons, and really gain some of the insights from that. So, happy to talk about that more, but it's interesting to see different businesses approaching it quite differently now.
Absolutely. Ursula, from your perspective, content, what do you see?
I think, speaking purely from where we operate as a business is in the automation space. And quite often we see a lot of customers come to us and say, well, we've got these bots, but now there's generative AI. What do we do? It's AI. How do we apply AI? And I think these are obviously a huge conversation to be had around that, and we'll be talking about that a lot more today. But I think the key message that we're bringing and seeing is that the bots can do a lot more than what they're doing at the moment. There's cognitive functions that we can start bringing into these bots, and that's what those conversations we're seeing. Yeah. But the guardrails are really important, right? So people are still standing back and waiting. Yeah.
Christopher, from your knowledge, experience.
Yeah, so our team's responsible for the entirety of New Zealand. So we have a lot of conversations inside public sector, a lot of conversations across regulated industries, and also a lot of conversations with digital startups who want to break every single model and business model out there. So it's a complete rainbow in terms of where that gets used. I would probably say the big chunk of the innovation that we're seeing, or the change in businesses that we're seeing, are those in the non-regulated space that don't want to have their business eaten by a startup effort that can effectively replace the cognitive load and time that it takes to do what they do today in a matter of weeks. So I think that's where we probably see the biggest piece of action.
Manish, from your perspective, what do you
just to build on Andrew's experience at Stuff. I mean, we have large text data in healthcare. I work in a public hospital, and so we're swimming in large text all the time, but we're probably drowning most of the time, to be fair. And so my obsessional interest is really these large language models, both encoding and decoding information to free up bandwidth for clinicians.
Now, Simon, from your perspective as well, I think you're actively using it. I believe you've won an award for it as well. Really keen to how you've seen it.
Yeah, so we're part of a real estate industry at Flynn Thompson, and I've got quite a strong software development team, and we always encourage innovation and a bit of experimentation in the work. So one of our teams was very keen. Well, we'd already experimented quite a bit actually with different AI and ML models, but earlier in the year, one of the teams wanted to build an advertising copy application. So within 3 weeks, they built an application that we could release inside our organisation that integrates with ChatGPT's API, and it generates our advertising copy for properties for sale and properties for rent. And I was just looking at the stats for October. So with virtually no promotion inside our company, we had 500 adverts created in 1 month. And the use case is quite hard to believe actually, but salespeople and property managers really struggle with the creativity and trying to get started to write advertising copy. So our research showed it 6 hours to prepare an advert. Now with ChatGPT, it's actually powered by ChatGPT, but the front end's an in-house application. They can enter an address, state whether it's a property for sale or a property for rent, add some features, and just it'll generate the advertising copy. And then, of course, you can edit it and change that. But that's saving a lot of time. It's been very popular.
500 ads, 6 hours.
In 1 month. Yeah.
About 3,000 hours.
Yeah. Yes, it's been a bit of a winner. So we won the Innovation Award for Real Estate Institute just recently, and I remember my team members saying, "Thanks, Simon, for letting us build that." I said, "I did nothing." They said, "Oh, but you helped encourage that experimentation." So you do need to kind of think about the culture and environment you can create for the ideas.
Fantastic, Simon. Thank you. So as the next question is all around getting started safely with AI. And, I think we're looking at such a vast topic, and it's what are the initial steps, of an organisation where we should go to start that journey. and Christopher, I'll throw to you first on this one.
Sure. So, especially thinking about generative AI, every now and then we generationally come across a technology that requires us to put rules of use around it. And I recall when mobile came about and everybody's configuring, you can make the mobile device connect to the Exchange server, and then also it's like, no, you have to use an approved device. And we've done this before for products and technology for internal rules, but I've found it's been very rare that the tech has been that dramatically changing that we had to set guidelines for how we build products and external facing capabilities with those tools. And that's really one of the things where I think generative AI is significantly different, even from the previous generations of narrow AI, just because of its ability to impact, because it's happening faster, better, in more places than we can really keep up with our computational capability, that we have to ensure that we set these guidelines. And we've talked, and you've probably seen many conversations around how do you set your policies and your governance up for this. But it can't just be a set of rules for what you should do and shouldn't do. It's a bit like there's the road code, but without the training, you're not actually going to be very good at following it, unintentionally or intentionally. And that then really comes down to how do you adapt your organization? What are you doing internally to upskill your teams, which both of you have spent time on, to be able to follow that code and understand that code. And obviously there's so many things that lead on from there.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll say is none of this can be rigid, because it's not an industrial age kind of set of rules that we're setting up for. This is digital on steroids, and it needs to be able to be just as flexible as a technology.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. And I suppose with that flexibility comes... Sorry, Christopher.
No, it's all good. We're sitting next to each other.
Sorry, yeah. With that flexibility comes the idea of risk mitigation. Andrew. What are the key strategies organisations can use to mitigate risk and ensure compliance in the use of generative AI?
Yeah, so really sort of picking up that thread from Christopher in terms of having that governance and that policy in place, and thinking about how we approached it at stuff, and then how we're approaching it at Sky City. Really, at stuff we do have our like data governance function, and we also then have a governance board around that, and a risk committee. But what we actually implemented was a policy document, and we engaged quite heavily with the business in terms of what should be in that policy document. And I think we made it quite tangible and actionable in terms of general policy, but then went down to actions. And look, it was quite a living document, and it was being updated probably twice a month in terms of the tools we were using, because we're constantly bringing in new tools and how we were using those tools, and how that policy applied. And I think when you're looking at putting a policy in place, you definitely need to provide that training to train it in, because two, I guess, are the big challenges with AI. One is the bias, and the other is what we call hallucination, which is just inaccuracy. So with bias, these models are being trained on the corpus of data that's the internet. So the internet is inherently biased, and also a lot of the models are trained on data out of the US, because the internet is skewed towards the American market. So what you have to be really careful is when you're using the models, not to be reinforcing those stereotypes, and those stereotypes might be racial stereotypes or gender stereotypes and things like that. And it doesn't take long using something like Midjourney to actually see those stereotypes playing out right before your eyes. So you need to train your people to know what to look for, and what to kind of be curious about or suspect in terms of stereotypes. Bias. And then, what's my second point? Pardon? Hallucinations. Yeah, well, just completely being factually wrong. And again, there's a certain discipline, because I think we use AI as a way of productivity, accelerating workflow, so getting to the answer really quickly. And so you just want to, one and done. I've used the AI and it's good to go. Let's send it out. But you actually have to stop and just go through and, is this actually factually correct? And can I use it? And again, that takes a certain discipline, because, people in the business, again, they're being, encouraged to get things out and use this technology to be productive. So it's a matter about, giving the people sort of the perspective through training and the ability to, call time or stop using the tools or edit the outputs, when they need to.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Now, Simon, from your perspective as well, you're living and breathing it at the moment, from that risk mitigation as well, and where you're sitting. Your recent process, can you sort of elaborate on that?
Well, I think the first thing we've done is look at a whole range of possible use cases, document them, but also look at data in quite a broad spectrum. So there's some safe areas that we can do a lot of stuff. A good example is property data is in the public domain, or the purpose of having property information is to market it and make it public. And so it's quite easy for us to do a use case in that area without there being concerns around data privacy. The other extreme, which would be around information around customer data that could have been obtained through open homes or just other customer transactions, then of course we're very careful. In fact, we're not doing any AI work there at the moment, but we want to. So our goal is to provide better customer service or create better income for our business, or to save people's time. They're the three strategies for our IT environment. So putting that into context, then I'm looking at the use cases, the data, and then I've had to establish an data management ethics committee to explore the more risky use cases. So that's kind of an emerging area for us. So there's on the property area, we're doing some work with Google where we can safely ship our data up to Google. They can apply AI algorithms and then create value for us there. We're in the experimentation stage here. I'm very keen to move into the customer domain, and I know other organisations have done that, but we're not mature enough there yet.
Yeah, and thanks, Simon. And that maturity piece as well. Ursula, it's about, so that AI strategy, how are we linking that and how are organisations linking that into their wider strategy going forward?
So I think, Simon, you've touched on it, right? If you think about your strategy, your business strategy, you have to have really clearly defined, well prioritized business goals, and your AI objectives will be linked to that, because ultimately, what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to achieve a better customer experience, a better employee experience, or is it operational efficiency that you're driving? What are those clear business goals that you're after? And based on that strategy, that's where you then start looking at, and it's exactly, you've answered the question, because that's exactly where you started. I think that's the one side of it. The other side of it is looking at data. Data, think of it. Data maturity, how mature is your data, how clean is your data, it's going to be garbage in, it's going to be garbage out. Whatever you feed the AI is going to give back to you. So yes, there's generative AI, and it's going to generate some interesting answers for you. The guardrails are really important, right? So what's your strategy around those guardrails? There are a lot of companies, Google, Microsoft, they're all putting in place frameworks to make sure that hallucinations, the RAG framework, that hallucinations don't happen, or that you have the guardrails to protect you from bias or hallucinations. But I'm finding a lot of customers that we're talking to are not even aware of it, because they're looking at it very tactically. So having that strategic view as to what the end goal is for your GenAI strategy or pathway in the organization, you must have that vision up front and then plan from there.
I think it's really driving a lot of conversations. I think I've got one of the conversations around product maturity, right? So for your product company, it's like, does this actually align with your company's mission statement or the goals that you set this year for development of your service or your products? Because it's so easy to find uses for it, right? It's super easy to get distracted, and it's super easy to build something that ends up not having any lasting value and churns up 6 months of everyone's collective time. And then I think to Simon's point too, every model is, I like to say, is wrong. Every model has error bars that the result might fit inside of, and I think approaching it from the understanding that it's not a calculated 2 + 2 = 4, other than garbage in, garbage out. The certainty is something that takes an awful lot of work, and the right use case to make sure that the risk profile matches.
Yeah. No, awesome. Simon, can I ask you a question? How did you work through the noise to get to a focused set of use cases?
Yeah, I remember saying, hey, this is going to be a topic that's going to cause whirlspin. So I think saying that up front was good. And I was quite fortunate that we had just done 6 months of work on our company strategy. And it was probably the best strategic planning that I'd done as a CIO in the last 30 years, where, I had business people contributing to what was important to them in my IT space. So it gave me that confidence to get the alignment and the focus. Anyone can come up with 100 ideas, but let's rank them, prioritise them around delivering value for the business. And so we're in a very strong position to do that. And it's constantly being refined. And importantly, we've all got limited resources and time. So you want to work out, are there some quick wins which will be quick to execute and learn from? And I'm actually going to tackle a very big, challenging use case because I think it's got long-term strategic value, and it might take 1 or 2 years to even get some high-value output. But I think long-term that'll be essential. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, Simon. And I suppose that flows through to our third question, which is how do we identify those practical use cases? We have those big, large, audacious strategic goals we can do and how we can leverage this technology to achieve that. But then how do we start, and what are we identifying? And Manesh, I'm going to throw to you first, mate. Just from your perspective as well. And given your day-to-day operating rhythm where you sit as well, and so I know, are you seeing it potentially as a disruptor and then identifying there's a couple of small tests and experiments that we can look at here, or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I operate in a very risk-averse, high sort of stakes environment. We don't like that term disruptive.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a positive term out here, but we're No, put that down. But I think the main key why I think I'm up here is that innovation with the large language model, just the complete game changer.
Yeah.
And so we just have so much text-heavy things.
Yeah.
Where I'm reading lots of text, I'm outputting lots of text. One of the most concrete examples, probably people have been to hospital here, it's very hard to get a doctor to write something which is explainable to the patient. and it doesn't matter, senior, junior, we don't seem to be able to do that. And I think, wouldn't this be great if we can say, type this out so a 90-year-old woman who's had a hip fracture can understand it? And I think both parties would be very happy with that solution.
Yeah.
So there's been recent changes with the public service communications legislation to make it more practical. And I think these are easy wins where people say that's tremendous value.
Absolutely. Demystifying that knowledge, right? That's key. Andrew, what about from your perspective? What are you seeing?
Yeah, so definitely those applications that, or using the technology at the moment, I think the things that are very text heavy, there's a lot of what we call unstructured data, which means there's a lot of text, and you want to somehow, like I'm saying, change the context, personalize it maybe in some way to the person who's reading it, or use it in a different context, or process it, take text and turn it into a way that is more understandable for a machine, like JSON or some structured data. But I think in terms of getting started, it's really about choosing a use case that's kind of low risk, as low risk as you can within your environment, and also something that you can get finished reasonably quick. I think trying to start with a 2-year project would be the wrong place. Obviously, this is not your first project. It's something you've had some early success because you want to show some success. You want to show what's possible to sort of capture the imaginations across your exec and with the board. So I think, think of something you can do within 3 months. something that's low risk, so that if it's a bit, goes off the rails a bit, you're not causing any harm to users. So it might be an internal thing, and I think something I'm going to be looking at inside Sky City is looking at how we can use AI to provide a chatbot for our contact centre staff. So when they have a call come in, what we'll do is we're going to train. We're going to looking to use Google Vertex to train a chatbot on all our internal knowledge bases and all those FAQs and everything, so that when someone calls into the contact centre, one of our attendants can quickly get an answer and respond to the customer. Now that there's human in the loop there, so if it comes up with something really unreasonable, then and that can easily be checked and that sort of thing. But I think in doing that first project, not only you want to achieve their business outcomes and making it like for a contact centre, it would make it easier for us to bring in new staff and not have to train them so much. They can be productive quickly. But as we go through that, we want to start to build that capability in the business and understand AI more, and which partners start to establish those trusted partnerships in terms of who are these AI partners we're going to be working with that we can trust with our confidential data and can keep that safe and produce the outcome we need. So an internal app preferably, I guess, where you can manage the risk and work with data. Yeah.
And Christopher, from your viewpoint as well, you mentioned a lot of disruptors, a lot of startups as well, coming across and saying, so how can we attack the space and grow it and flip something on its head? But it all starts small. So what are you seeing in that there?
So I think of kind of three categories as you go up the effort and value slope. The first one is, what can you do that will eliminate time in a process somewhere along the way? It might be summarization, it might be a little bit of automation, it could be internally focused, so you can trial it and see, I didn't want to skip that step, whoops. But you can condense that time. And there's some fantastically huge examples of that. If anyone's familiar with things like AlphaFold, where we took 3 years of PhD level research to figure out how proteins form from polypeptide chains of amino acids. If it's that. Someone correct me later. and that's 3 years of a PhD to figure out 200 million naturally occurring proteins. And that's then condensed to 3 hours through the predictive capabilities that DeepMind developed. That's 600 million years of effort that's just evaporated. So anyway, it doesn't need to be that grand, but if you can think about summarizing a bunch of emails or categorizing a bunch of customer service stuff by topic, that's something probably no one looks forward to doing when they start Monday morning. And the next one up the chain then is very related, but I think 2 different angles, is reducing cognitive load. There's some things that might not take a lot of time, but they're painful to do. You're like, this is not what I thought I was going to do when I signed up for this job, right? This is the drudgery, it's the toil that we talk about in like reliability engineering. How can you reduce the toil? And this might be an internal employee satisfaction benefit, or it might be a product. And then the last one is takes more effort, takes more time, you've gotten familiar with it, is how do you build something that's of lasting value? And building a moat or building a differentiated capability that's going to be around. And that's going to take a bit more time, a bit of your own data, a bit more nuanced approach to how to build that. But as you work your way up those maturity curve and that benefit ratio, I think those are the 3 things to kind of focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's those little wins, right? And capturing, from short little wins, big things grow, right? And Simon, I think you've alluded to that too. Coming across from an organisation saying, well, we've got a large strategy, we're seeing it, but let's pull it back, and then it becomes, I guess, there's a level of comfort within the business. When, to your earlier point, we're saving ourselves 6 hours an ad, right? And so, what else can we do? And that becomes really, really key. But obviously, making sure we've got the guardrails, that process in place. And I suppose with those guardrails, as we go along, Christopher, it's about saying, and we're driving more and more and more into it. And we're starting to leverage our data, our company data, and actually identifying and saying, so how do we take this to essentially monetize what we have and capture it to give ourselves that competitive advantage, to save time, to do a huge step change within the industry as well. Where are you seeing that, and how do we get started with my data?
So I would say one is probably from a user experience perspective. How do I ask this question of room? So what's the first action that comes to mind when you pull up a web page or like a mobile page and there's a chat bot on the bottom right? Minimize? Okay. So what if you can, but at the same time we can make them really eloquent. That might drive more people to use it. But what if we took that experience and put it center to the flow of what the user has? Search bar that gives you turn by turn follow up instead of having to go through a different piece. So I encourage focusing on that in terms of getting started. What do you have? What's the product there that in its natural flow you can enhance? And Gmail is a great example. Sentence completion, that's an LLM that's been being used in one form or another since about 2018. And you don't have to go off somewhere. Even like some of the tools that we have right now, we go off to a side panel to ask it to do something. I think that's probably, think about what you already have that can be enhanced with a little bit of, trivialize, right? A few API calls to a large language model to make it more interesting. Now going up that chain again, the other place to get started, and it might not fit the easy description, but it's understanding your data. And that might mean you have to start with a small amount of data and being able to then, if I back up a little bit, moving away from the conversations of like ChatGPT and Bard, taking your small amount of data and mating it with or training an enterprise level model, one that can be done safely without any data leakage, it's by design. But second, that really lets you then build differentiation that's unique to your brand, to your voice, to your customers, that isn't going to be easy to replicate. Even if you start with as small as 100 samples of some sort of data, whether that's image or whether it's text, you can very quickly start to see a little bit of differentiation. So now you combine understanding what your user journeys are with a little bit of unique response, and I think that's a good pattern that we've seen that really makes things stick.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Ursula, from your perspective, with starting with your own data, I mean, you've alluded to it earlier as well about making sure it's clean and there's no garbage in, garbage out. So where from your perspective as well, we all want to necessarily run off and start seeing and experimenting and use that term fail fast. But if we haven't got that fundamental foundational data, from that company data, clean, and not necessarily structured, but actually in a way that we can go, well, we can actually take, information off the back of that. Where are you seeing from that perspective?
So I think maybe just adding on to what Christopher was saying, looking at those use cases, the data is important and the data needs to be structured. And, you have things like Neo4j at the moment, create data sets that can help you associate, create those associations in your data sets, and at least it's easier for your models to work with the data. But I'm just thinking about the use cases and thinking about what you said, Christopher, around embedding. So instead of, and that, honestly, I have the same thing. When I see a chatbot, I think, really? It's just going to make me talk to a human anyway, so what's the point? The use case around embedding that GenAI capability into your organization, into your Slack channels or your Teams channels, making it available, creating a self-service environment, and I think you touched on it, Andrew, that self-service environment for a better employee experience and a better customer experience. So internally, if I want to log leave, I can't even sit here and tell you how I do that right now. I know I have a link saved somewhere, and then I'm going to go and try and remember what my password is. That's kind of where we're at. But I'd rather be able to talk to an AI virtual agent and say, hey, how much leave have I got? Let me quickly jump on this call while the virtual agent's checking my leave balance, and hey, can you also log my leave? And at the same time, can you also go and make sure my timesheet is up to date or whatever it is, and the virtual agent is going to go away and do that for me. I can say to the virtual agent, at the same time, I need a statement of work for this customer based on the following criteria, and it generates my statement of work at the same time. this is a technology that's available right now. It's available today. It's what we're talking to customers about at the moment. And but again, if your data is not mature and clean, it will fail. And those guardrails are really important. You want to talk about that?
Manish, from your perspective, and I think we'll talk about data being clean as well, but capturing from, like, I suppose, personally, from your experiment around experimentation, what have you looked at? What have you found? What's scratching that itch, so to speak?
Yeah, well, I'm no expert in data, but in the research we've been doing, I would have thought a lot of the interesting stuff we're getting out of it is completely unstructured. And we're just blown away how AI is pulling this stuff together. And so I don't hold much hope that healthcare is going to get these clean data pieces, but I do hold hope that somehow, and we don't know what's all behind it, which is the interesting thing, it does seem to understand stuff with very little instruction. Doesn't need a medical degree, but can do things. So it's both scary, so it's good to think about the guardrails. But I think we've seen the most interesting stuff with unclean data, actually. Yeah.
In what way?
Particularly with what we write in free text, with there's spelling mistakes. The only way you sort of know if it's from a human now, it seems, is there's spelling mistakes. Apart from that, the AI would pass for most things. And I'd probably even say I wouldn't have said that 4 months ago to now. So it's accelerating at a crazy stage. So I think I first started playing with the stuff in November last year. And yeah, it's interesting. We don't know what that future looks like, but it seems to be going like that.
Yeah, on that hockey stick. So is there a danger then of someone like me, accelerating from Googling my symptoms to coming in as an expert and saying, well, I've got, and you're having a conversation that, in that context becomes king, right? Because, and to your earlier point about, well, how do I bring it back down to a level that a Jono can understand, But then also when they're going away and they're researching all that, it's that diving into that personal, it's quite personal for them as well, and saying, well, to help me understand, where do I go to? So are you seeing some benefits in that side of it, like with, I suppose, more informed patients, and I know it's a double-edged sword, I appreciate that, but what are you seeing on the back of that?
I think it's overall been net positive, and you won't get that from a lot of medical people. And I think we're going to find that new term, what was Googling, which is quite an old term now, Dr. Google.
Yeah.
It'll be now Dr. ChatGPT, and not that long ago, I had a family who were quite worried about their infant and our baby in it, and they said, hey, look, I've put it all into ChatGPT, and it's kind of saying the things you're doing, so we're happy.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. And we've shown the value of second opinion, which is actually quite hard for a person to do with a doctor. It's a bit confronting. So we might have a way forward where people can get a second opinion without offending a doctor, and same with the doctor. So I think even though people don't like Dr. Google, and there's a lot of American sort of stuff out there illegal, a lot of doctors use Google.
Yeah, so just a couple of topics we've just covered, I think quite important. It's worth saying that we're all learning. It's so early. So I've seen an example where bad data gave a very bad experience with a real estate portal here in New Zealand. So we were doing some work ourselves looking at natural language search, and then one of the big portals launched it. I knew it was coming, and so when it arrived, I thought, I'm going to try it. It failed dismally, and I got hold of the technical team that were involved and say, look, this experience is so bad. I'll give you an example. A natural language search for property would be something like, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment near the beach. So when I did that, I remember searching for that near the beach in Auckland, and it gave me Whangarei results. And I've also done searches for properties with a tennis court or a swimming pool or an open home on Saturday. And the results were very bad. So I went back to that site every 2 or 3 days. After 3 weeks, they took it down. And so it was just poorly executed. And there's no gain by being first to market if you do it poorly. So that's an example of poor data, or not really understanding the whole journey that you need to get right to give a good customer experience. We're now working with Google on a similar scenario. But of course, I still treat it as an experiment. So until we see that we're going to create value for you when you're searching for property, it's not worth putting out there. And there's another element to the experiment. So one is to look at the quality of the outcome, but also there's a big question mark around the cost of compute, the cost of each transaction is really quite unknown. And so I think we will encounter scenarios that would be great to solve, but they may not be affordable to solve for business. So
yeah, today, right? And I suppose we got that hockey stick, from 4 months ago to where we are today, right? It's accelerating at such a rate. And on those local language models as well, especially in real estate, right? It's such a personalised, optimum motive decision as well. But then you've also got investors that look at it from a cold, hard yield decision. So how are you finding, models can differentiate that approach as well?
Well, it's an interesting question, because today real estate's a very manual process, and it's people are heavily involved. So we always call it's a people business, and we have salespeople in every suburb in Auckland, and they know their customer base very well, and they meet them every Saturday at open home. It's quite unique compared to any other corporation, which might have a centralised service desk or other outbound selling. So we're meeting our customers face to face. So that means the digital scenarios are quite different. Opportunities are quite different. So what's an interesting model is that we would have 500,000 customers in Auckland, but who's looking today, and what are they looking for? And are they buying for their children, or are they buying their third investment property? I think those types of insights can be interesting. And it's not uncommon for someone to be looking for two houses at the same time. So their children might have left home and they want to downsize and buy an investment property. So there's lots of scenarios, and we do not have that information, but our salespeople that have just met you yesterday at Open Home do have that information.
So is there an opportunity? I'm sorry, jumping in here. So is there an opportunity for mass personalisation? Because you're saying there's everyone's different in terms of what they're looking for, and it's a relationship-based business between that, the relationship between the agent and the buyer. But how do you see AI being used to sort of enhance that relationship and personalise it?
Well, more around providing relevant information at the right time. Right. But our strategy would be to provide that to the salesperson, so that they can engage with you in an informed, meaningful way. And our top salespeople already do that. They already do that well. But when you talk about mass personalisation, since we talk about AI, I mean, there's much stronger potential in education and in health, where the individual needs is so unique that appears to be, the mega use case. I think, not real estate. I think it's relatively small.
Yeah, but it's also interesting, right? Like
it is.
If you're saying you're coming across it saying, well, when we started talking about this from a strategy and a strategic viewpoint of this is going to be a big part of it, we're starting to see use cases that perhaps we went down a path to go and address something else, and look at this that's come out over here, and actually that's significant value, And Christopher, from your perspective, are you seeing a lot of that come through as well?
I'm going to pass on that question just right now.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Sure. That's all right. So, guys, and also, please, if there's any questions, Slido. I know, looking at the time as well, I've got Jen telling me off at the moment. We'll throw to the wider audience as well some questions too. But Ursula as well. When we're starting to talk to these organisations, we've got three distinct industries coming through it, and saying these use cases and how we get started and identifying. from your, the key common theme seems to be around making sure that we've got those guardrails in place, we're identifying and we're capturing that. But that application, we can have those guardrails, we can have that, but that application is a challenge. From your perspective, how are you helping organisations achieve that application?
Starting with process, understanding the business processes, that's the key. And then really from there is creating that headroom, like we've spoken about that quite a bit today. Creating that headroom to do more. You successfully managed to go and build a GenAI model, and it's created a lot of headroom. It's saved 6 hours per person per day, or thereabout, and that gives you the headroom to start then thinking about more. And just answering your question you were supposed to answer. It creates those consequences, right? It's a consequence. Is, hey, we've just found another use case, and it's an accidental consequence of something else. So, and it happens, and it can start snowballing. The guardrails are important, but I think what we are seeing a lot of at the moment is really people are frustrated because they can't get to their data. And when I talk about data, I'm talking about information and data. Information is everywhere, right? It's in documents, it's in applications, it's in databases, it's everywhere. And how do you get to that data? And how do you get to that information? How do you make sense of that information? And Q's in the audience is busy working on a couple of demos for us at the moment, and we're working with customers because they're saying, help. How do we get to the data? How can we interrogate this data without having to go and spend a huge amount of time, effort and money on building out a platform or an application? The technology is there. The GenAI technology is there. We're using it, bringing it in as part of conversational AI assistance. And the technology can be A, B, C, or D. No, I'm not here to tell you about the technology. But the conversational AI is so powerful in giving you access to your data. And I think that people are a bit slow in that uptake at the moment because the value to customers and to employees is immeasurable. Yeah.
That's something I'll add on to, if that's all right. So I think that's it can be easier to get to some of the information depending on how you use that large language model. Quite often it feels like I've got to jam all of it into here, I have to train it, I have to do things. There are a number of ways that it can retrieve information from authoritative data sources. So, for example, if you go to a bar and you ask it how long it's going to take to get from here to here, it's just going to go. It knows to go to Google Maps and show that to you rather than dream up a route. That might be part canoe, part bicycle, part car, and gives you that answer. So, I think about some of the things that the large language models can do, which is they can make complex queries. It might be, where do I find the system? What's the link to get to do my time off? Or it might be write a SQL statement to a database that you already have, and it can write a SQL statement better than I know how to do, and pull that information back out and then infer from that result. So think about about GenAI in terms of part of the layer. Don't throw away the tools of information retrieval that you already have that you can really use to make an outstanding outcome. And I would say solid 80% of the use cases that we run into end up in that final configuration. Oh, we have a very narrow AI that's good at pulling context, or very good at clustering data, or very good at pulling tone out of an email. And then the results from that are going to go into the LLM, and then it will manage that more ethereal pattern matching and give you something you can understand, hopefully.
Fantastic, thank you, Christopher. And I suppose the last thing is around that data privacy. We've all heard stories of someone throwing something that they shouldn't onto an open platform and going, whoops. So in terms of those guardrails as well, I love what you said. It's almost like the cream on top of everything else sort of coming through. How are you that? I suppose that privacy and that security, because with momentum comes enthusiasm, and the unintended consequence of that enthusiasm is, oh well, I'll just have a little dabble at home or whatever, and I'll throw something in, and then you can't unthrow something into some of those models, right? So it's capturing that side of it. So what's your sort of take on that, just putting on the spot here?
Yeah. So I think if you think about how we got employees to successfully use previous waves, I was like, no, don't bring your own device. I've got a really cool device that I'll pay for, and it'll have a corporate policy on it, but just use that. And okay, cool. So one, giving your employees an avenue to use that for internal purposes, or your product teams a path to do exploration. Because you're right. I mean, it's not unique to ChatGPT or Bard or others. Like, read the terms of service. The trade there is the information that you get. Now, when you want to engage in something like an API to the GPT 3.5 or 4 model, or Palm 2 model, or Gemini once you release it, that's a different kind of agreement. And ours, anyway, I can say, is built from its origin to be basically a one-way. It is a global model that we built that is read-only inside your premises. And you can talk to it all you want, but it doesn't have a mechanism to learn. We don't want our premier model learning randomly. Imagine software that gets deployed in the client and it just kind of changes the subroutines based on what the last person said to it. It's like, well, okay, that's from a software delivery perspective, that's wild. So a similar approach when it comes to business-to-business approach of delivering those models. And again, both contractually, in terms of service, and by design, it's meant as a one-way, safe way for us to share a model and let you use it, and let businesses use it, and let you tune it with your information without giving it to anybody else.
If I could just build on that, if I've got time, would be, when you're looking for AI products out there, there's been this explosion of products. There's like hundreds of products, and I actually spoke at a conference this morning on content marketing. And if you look at the content marketing space, I was talking about AI and content marketing. There's hundreds of products, products coming out every week. And a lot of those products are kind of a thin layer. Someone's developed a product that sits on top of one of these AI models at the back, and that could be, it could be a Google model, it could be, OpenAI, it could be an open source thing that they're running themselves, and you don't always know. And if you don't know what model it's using, if your data is safe, you really can't use that. It's just too risky. And a lot of these companies, because it's actually not that hard to build something in front of a model, a lot of these companies are like, one-person companies, or maybe two people. They're just really small. And if your data was to leak, then you really got no comeback, because good luck finding them. So I think if you are serious about using AI in your business, you actually need to look at a trusted partner, and you really want to be using one of the models, like something in Google Vertex, like Palm 2, or one of the other models where your data is safe, and there's a company of substance behind that. If there is if there was a data breach, which these large companies, they're HIPAA compliant, and they've got all the these compliance, and your data is safe. So my recommendation would be that either use a product where you have transparency in terms of what that back-end model is, and potentially you even upload your own keys, so it's using your version that's all secure. Or you use, you build something directly on top of, like, the Google model or some other model that is secure, because otherwise it's just way too risky. That's my take anyway, as a CIO.
Brilliant. Now, we do have some questions for the panelists. If you excuse me.
You can get first pass.
So, Simon, I think this one, from your perspective as well, right? Which is interesting, and probably Manish as well. How do you manage that ethical risk using AI?
Well, I covered it earlier, where there's some areas where I don't think there's risk because of the data subject being public information around property. So that was safe for us to experiment and do things. And where there's, we've got a data and ethics committee, and of course our in-house lawyer is on that committee, and we're already strong around security and privacy, but now we want to do things with our data in new ways. So we have to challenge ourselves and work out, are we going to do that or not? And a little bit of a shout out to Spark, because They did a great presentation 2 years ago around their brain that they use for marketing. And I remember them saying clearly they have lots of marketing campaigns they want to execute with AI. But at the time, half of their use cases would not pass the ethics committee. So, I've got that in the back of my mind. And even this morning, I was doing some work on potential use cases, a very long list. And a lot of them are tongue-in-cheek. There's no way we will do them, but I want to show the types of challenges that we face. That it's not just an open, hey, we got the data so we can do these things.
Yeah.
And so I think it's good to test our ethics committee and say, here's some things we could do, but we won't for these reasons. And I think it's important to take that rounded view. That's what we will do.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and healthcare is quite mature in that sense with oversight, regulations, probably, there's so many acronyms that oversee what we do, and for all good reasons, and this is one innovation, and we'll see others that will just fit through that process. It probably comes across like I'm a bit of a wet blanket up here because I'm sort of risk averse, don't do this and things, but if anyone wants to start an AI healthcare company, I am here afterwards. but where I see AI innovations, one every week, that sounds pretty interesting. What's built on top of it? Everything was funneled through clinical research. So if you're going off the reservation, the Medical Council of New Zealand, the FDA, they're not going to support you. And that clinical research process already has an equity lens, has an ethical lens.
Yes.
So we've sort of already got that baked in, whether it's a drug or whether it's software. So I see things just continuing on that line. Where the challenges, I think here, which might be interesting for people to think about, is that if you make things hard for people to do the right thing, or what they're going to do, you can drive things underground. And I think this might be quite different. It's not like I can set up a little biological bag and make something. But I could do it without LLM and put bits and pieces and puzzle together. And if you say, I didn't want to go to that ethics committee, I thought I'd just do it. So I'm not sure which way that will go, but I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people who have people working for them might not know what's going on.
Or if you have partners working for you, building something of their own initiative, that suddenly pops up in your website, like, where did that come from? And why is it saying that?
Which is a fantastic segue into this next question that's come on. And that's at what level in the business is the decision to use AI being made? And Ursula, I'll throw to you first, But then also, as we see it, to your points earlier, is it going lower and lower and lower, and from the bottom up coming through? And where are you seeing that as?
I think what we're seeing a lot of, it's driven at the moment very much from an IT perspective, from the CIO's desk or the CTO's desk. But we're seeing more and more business users, sitting up and paying attention and saying, well, you guys are our automation partner, but what else can we do? We know that there's this ChatGPT thing, it's amazing. How can I use it? So there's the personal productivity part of it, and then there's a business productivity part of it. And we spoke about that earlier as a panel before the session. And it's how do you address that need and where do you start? And I think I feel it should be driven by the business because it's supporting a business outcome. Where I think at the moment IT is driving a lot of that initiative, but business should get more involved. What do you think, panelists?
Well, I think it's essential to encourage it right across your business, and people will engage in AI and learn about AI in different ways. But if you're going to have an innovative, progressive business, those ideas don't come from IT or from the senior management. You really want to have a culture of encouraging experimentation, risk-taking, depending on the industry, of course. And that's one reason I enjoy the real estate industry, because there's room for some risk. Where I used to work in Telecom New Zealand, definitely had a different risk profile. You felt a bit bogged down sometimes. So, but wherever you work, there's room to use AI tools. I kind of felt like when the question was asked, it's a bit like saying, who in your company should be using electricity? I mean, everyone's using electricity and everyone's using data. And AI, interestingly, I believe it's going to make all of our applications look slow and unwieldy and of no use in 5 or 10 years. Because today I go to a keyboard and I enter data, and I go to the next page and the next tab, and I do a search, and when I'm looking for something, I'm engaging on the keyboard. But now I believe where we're heading, that the asset, and we know the asset's the data. I'm trying to become more expert in data and less concerned about functionality, because I believe the AI potential will be interacting in different ways and getting the answers we need to do our work.
Fantastic, Simon. Thank you. And I suppose the final Q&A question we have coming through is, we've mentioned how rapidly changing it is as well. And it's from the crowd coming in and saying, how are we reconciling investing in such a rapidly evolving technology with delivering those results and then seeing that ROI? And I know, Simon, you've touched on it earlier around the time saving and actually pulling out 6 hours per agent in the first month as well. But Andrew, from your perspective as well, given, I suppose, the shifts across industry that you've seen from within stuff and then also now to Sky City, that viewpoint, I'm keen to sort of see from your perspective.
Yeah, so from a productivity point of view, I think it's, again, coming back to how you select your use cases. I mean, all the use cases and experiments we tried, all very strong ROI. One thing, we did some experiments with that stuff. We're looking at sponsored news stories in terms of how long it would take to create one, or how long it takes one to create one manually versus with AI. And it's a sort of story where you'd be writing about, say, someone who's a wedding venue, and they want you to write an article about how to choose your ideal wedding venue, so that they can then align that with their brand. So something like that manually would take about 3 hours to write a well-researched article, where we found our journalists who normally create that sort of article could do it in 15 minutes, right? Create the structure, then go in and work with what the AI created them to then make sure it was appropriate and ready to go out. So huge time saving potential there, the technology, and I think that really there are those kind of low hanging fruit, so you can actually get some really compelling use cases to start with, and then start to make the organisation more broadly aware of the opportunities that there are. Just really coming back to that previous question around where in the organisation that sits. Again, I think it's right through, and I think the board and the exec, they are aware of the need for businesses to be more productive and use technologies, but they're also very aware of the risks, cybersecurity risks and risks to brand and perception of the business. So it's, there's still something to work through there in terms of how much risk are you prepared to take in order to go after those productivity improvements. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. And with that, this now draws to a close our live stream and our event. So thank you all for taking part. If we didn't get to your questions, if you're in the room today in Auckland, grab one of the panellists. I'd love to have a chat as well. Or failing that, come and see some of the friendly frondies floating around. First of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to our panellists for coming in and giving your insight as well. It was fascinating. I certainly learned a lot, and I can safely say I am definitely the dumbest guy in the room and took a lot into that. So thank you so much. And hopefully those 3 key points we spoke about: how to get started, use it safely, use cases, and then using your own data. It started to just germinate a couple of ideas for everyone coming through. Again, we love doing these events. We did one not that long ago, 6 months ago, and the landscape's changed considerably. So this is something that we always like to do. We love having you guys come along, listen and learn about this sort of stuff. As always, your feedback is important to us as well, so we can change, scope, tweak whatever we need to do. So there will be a survey going out on the back of that. I really encourage you to chuck in and give us your thoughts and feedback. We've also got a complimentary Generative AI online maturity assessment that we'll be sending out to every one of you as well, just to see where you are and if there's an opportunity for us to help or connect you with someone from the panelists as well to have a discussion. So thank you all very much. For those online, really appreciate it. For those here in Auckland, there's some food and beverages available for you after this, so appreciate it all. Thank you very much for your time.